because there's a big hole in the ceiling here. So you're not going to have people standing in here and touching that side of the banister top. But just to keep everything a bit more consistent, we'll pop a couple in there, but not many. Maybe just a few down this end here. Alright, let me just recenter my model. Let's have a look at adding a generator to see if we can just add a bit more overall interest to the wood texture itself. So if I go to add generator here, and I have to select the generator I want to add to it. We have a couple here to choose from that come with Substance Painter. Generally I'll use the dirt one. And you can see what that's done to the material. I'm going to turn off the height value and the rough value and start playing with my dirt levels here a bit. So I'm going to I always get confused with Substance because in most programs, including Mari, which is the other painting program I use, this is 0 and this is 1. Now it's like that in Mari too, but they sort of swap it around backwards so that you add more to get down towards 0 and you add less to go up towards 1. It's usually the other way around in most 3D programs. I'm going to pull in here a bit and have a look at what that's doing to the underlying texture. Just pulling back on the contrast of the dirt here. I don't want to touch my triplanar. That's just triplanar is how Substance is projecting that dirt pattern onto the model itself, and what it's doing is it's using 3 planes to project that pattern down to blend them together, the dirt pattern that is. Now here we have our grunge amount and grunge scale. Let's have a look at that. Play with that scaling a little bit. I'm just going to pull out so I can see more of the overall model here. Here we pull back on our grunge scale a little bit. That probably will make it look a bit more natural, so dirtier in some parts, cleaner in others. Edge masking, again, that's just how Substance's generator is blending those 3 projections together into each other to blend the whole texture together. You generally don't need to mess with that too much. So we have a dirt pattern on top of it, but it's completely covered up our lovely cherry wood there. So what we need to do is we need to change our blending mode. So and these blending modes are the same as Photoshop, so if you guys are used to using Photoshop, it's the same sort of thing. We can throw down a multiply, which is usually what you'll use in Photoshop to multiply textures together, but doesn't mean we have to use that. We can play with them all and see which one looks better. Again, we're going to be playing with the overall opacity as well once we decide on what blend mode we want. So dark and minimum is not too bad. I don't like dark and light. No, not a linear dodge for this. not a subtraction. Nope. No, not non-exclusion, not for this model anyway. An overlay will generally always work. So it's either going to be an overlay, we'll do a screen, no, not a screen. Generally going to be either an overlay, so I'm just going to go back to that, or a multiply, or a darken minimum. Let's go with a darken minimum at this stage, just because I like the fact that we're getting a little bit of a difference in colour here between that part of the grunge dirt to this part. So one's a little bit more greener and one's a bit browner. Just adds a bit more interest. But let's play with our opacity, or overall opacity here. Let's give it a dirt contrast value. Play with the dirt level now that I have my settings here to determine how much dirt I actually want it to place on that wooden texture. Again, I'm going to pull back on the model so I can get a better overall look at it. Too dirty. You don't want to go overboard either. Remember, less is more in everything. So you want to pull it in just a little bit, so you can just start to see some dirt marks popping in here and there, but you're not covering your entire wood texture up. You see how the effect that gives to the wood. Even though it's called dirt, it makes it look more as if the wood has been worn, like the polish has been worn off the wood. I think we should probably be good with that. We could play with our scale value too if we wanted to bring up more or less of the grunge or of the wearing on the wood. If that was the look you were going for. And again, because we've pulled back our dirt level quite a bit, we're not affecting all of the wood, we're only affecting it in parts, and we are still getting some darkening as well, so like some dirt marks happening. I just want to pull back on it just a little bit. I don't want quite so much wearing and weathering happening there. So we've done our edge wearing, we've done our gradual dirt mask, just to dirt generator, just to add a bit more interest overall to the underlying wood pattern. Going through my layers here to check what it's doing. So my roughness is on because that'll give me the gloss to the wood. If I turn my roughness completely off, it'll look very flat. And wood will be polished, so you don't want it completely flat. Now let's export this texture and bring it into Max. So I'm going to export my textures. Make sure we're in our new folder we created. UE4 project, model, Deco building, export, and we're looking for square banister, and we're going to export our texture set there. Again, we're going to export it as a 2K texture because we can always reduce it down later on in Photoshop if it's too big. Okay. Just before we move into Max there, let's save our project. And we're going to call it square banister top. Just in case we want to come back at some stage after we've taken it into Unreal and change our texture at all. We'll jump back into Max. We'll open up our material editor. Come on, Max. There we go. I'm just going to throw down a standard material and load up that bitmap we just exported from Substance Painter. Go banister. And you'll see Substance Painter, because we're using an Unreal Engine 4 preset, has created our color map. We're not using a normal map for this piece of geometry. Even though it's created one, it's created a strange one. We probably won't use a normal map. We'll see what it looks like when we bring it into Unreal. And it's also created a occlusion, roughness and metallic map. That's the one that'll affect how shiny our banister railings are, but we're looking for the color map at this stage. But remember to turn on Show Shaded and Show Realistic, otherwise we won't see it when we apply it in the viewport. And assign the material. I'm going to deselect it for a moment. Alright. Now it's going to, we're not using our roughness or anything, so the material is going to look a bit flat here in Max. It should look okay when we bring it into Unreal though. I don't want to bring this in though separately like this. I want to wait until we've finished texturing the rest of that piece of the geometry up, reattach it before I export it as an FBX so we can bring it into Unreal. Because we might as well work with this as one piece of geometry instead of rebuilding it bit by bit in Unreal for things like the top and the sides. So let's exit isolation mode. Let's move on to another piece of the geometry here. Now I'm not going to be changing the texture here for these column pieces, that browner coloured texture, but I'm changing the textures for these lighter coloured white, yellowy brown parts of the model. I also want to change the texture for this base that sits underneath of the top railing. So let's go into sub-object mode and select those. We're going to detach them, select them, and I'm going to go back into isolation mode again. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to throw down and unwrap UVW and open our UVW editor. Going to pull in so we can see our model a bit better. And again, we're going to make sure we have all of those pieces selected. And again, we're going to try our flatten mapping. We'll see what result that gives us. Okay. Okay. They're on the bottom. And they're the sides. These should be okay, I think. Yeah, no, that should work for us. Alright, I don't like seeing my map seams or pelt seams, so I'm going to turn them off. Let's export this piece of geometry now. We're going to call this one Square Banister Bottom, I think. So SQR Banister Bottom. Okay. Well, let's jump back into Substance Painter. Let's create a new project. We'll select that Square Banister Bottom we just exported. And go OK. Because remember, we saved this, so we can come back to it if we need to make any changes. So now we have to start doing the same thing again for our base here that we did for the top. So we're going to start by pulling in that cherry wood. Again, we're going to remove the bottom layer that's just empty that we're not using. Again, I'm going to change my tiling value here to try 2. Let's try 6 here. I'm also going to pull back up on my roughness. I don't want it to be quite so bumpy. And also on my height value. Again, that should probably work for what we want, I think. But just before we start doing some edge wearing on this, I'm going to take a quick break, guys, for a few minutes. Monk. This is actually going to be, what I'm texturing up here is an interior banister railing, which you see here in this video. This is one that I made in 2011, so 6 years ago. I'm recreating this building in Unreal Engine 4, and what we're working on here is this banister railing at the top that goes inside the top of the ceiling on the second floor. So if I jump back into Max and in my isolation mode, you can see what that is. It's this banister, and what we're doing is we're taking it into Substance Painter, and we're just texturing it up, retexturing it, because I made that one 6 years ago and I want to retexture it. So that's what the model is we're working on. That's what we're working on it for. We're going to be remaking this building that I made in UDK 6 years ago. We're redoing it now in Unreal Engine 4.15. So we can see what the changes to the lighting have been made by Epic Games over the years. I also want to I'm updating the textures and some of the models to make them a little bit higher poly and look a little bit nicer. So that's what we're doing, and that's what we're working on at the moment. So we're going to remake this building in Unreal, and we're just gradually bringing the assets in one by one into the Unreal Engine. Once we have them all finished in the Unreal Engine, then we can start rebuilding this inside of Unreal. And we're working on this top banister railing today. We've already brought in a few models into our Unreal Engine here. We have our light fittings, our sconce here. That's just using an emissive map. We'll be putting actual light sources in when we place them on the walls. We have our Art Deco doors in 2 halves, a left and a right. Just wait for it to load in that texture. So we have our Art Deco doors on the left and the right hand side. We did it that way so we could open them inside the engine, inside the building. We have our wrought iron gates that are going inside the building. We're just retexturing them up to make them look a bit more interesting. So I've added some gold in places for them. The same with the actual door. And then we did our wooden ceiling arches that you saw in the video. I just retextured those up to make them look a bit more interesting as well. As well as the panels, the wooden panels that are on the wall. Again, I just added more geometry to them to make them more three-dimensional. So gradually, bit by bit, we're bringing in our assets from the old version of the building into the Unreal Engine, and once we've got them all ready in Unreal, we're going to rebuild the building in Unreal. But for now, I'm just going to take a quick break for a few minutes, guys. I want to grab a fresh cup of coffee. I'll be back in just a couple of minutes. I'll leave you with my Be Right Back screen. Hopefully the music won't stutter. It has been stuttering recently, I'm not sure why, but I'll be back in just a few minutes, guys. Okay. So let's have a look at this one, and we're going to do the same thing we did with the last one, where we're going to add this wood beach honey. Done it again, don't do that. Okay, good. Kept my settings, that's what I want. So I've just added the wood beech honey underneath, a layer underneath of my cherry wood on top. I do want to turn off the roughness value and the height value, because I don't want that underlying wood to affect the height value of the cherry wood on top. So let's jump back to our cherry wood and add a white mask. Jump back in and make sure we have our brush selected. Again, we're going to zoom in. I'm going to reduce my brush size quite a bit. Go back to my pen. And just start erasing the edges again. I'm going to go a little bit stronger here because this is the runner that runs along the floor. So odds are you're going to get people that'll kick this bottom runner when they stand next to that railing. So we can afford to make this one a little bit more worn. But again, I'm going to miss a couple of spots here and there. I'm actually going to change my, I'm just going to jump back into my cherry wood here and change the colour as well. Again, we're going to make it just a little bit redder. Maybe not quite that red. And we're also going to pull back a bit on the luminosity. Alright, that's just so I can better see that yellow wood against the red, and to better match the top railing sections we did. We'll make sure I'm back in my alpha mask there. Okay, let's move on to the other side here. I may pull back a little bit on my height value in just a minute. Looking at it from the in the light like that, I think it might be just a little bit too bumpy. So back to my roughness value here. And my height range and height a bit better. Again, I want to make sure height is actually switched off here while I'm painting this wearing into the side. Back to my alpha map. What I'm doing here is pulling the wearing down right down to the bottom, just in this one spot. Pull back out a bit. Let's do this edge over here. And again, I'm going to pull it down just a bit in spots here and there to make it a little bit more obvious. Again, because this is the runs along the base of that banister, so it will be kicked a bit more.
Doesn't feel like yesterday. It feels so far away. Now you're gone out of my life. You're gone without a fight.
have one edge left on the other side here. Now again, when I was creating the garden terrace, you guys that have been following my channel, watching me do that, you know how much I hate really hard edges on a model, and this does have hard edges, but because it's a game model and we don't want to unnecessarily add polys if we don't have to, I'm not going to chamfer those edges to make them smooth. What you could do is you could create a high poly mesh and bake out a normal map that way and soften them up like that. So you can still keep your low poly mesh but keep a soft edge. But generally you'll find with game models most of the time they're going to have hard edges anyway, simply because they are game models, and you really do want to try and reduce your polygon count. Well, as much as you can. You don't want to add unnecessary polygon count anyway. Like I said, we can get away without adding a lot more polys nowadays than we could when I made that building in Unreal, in UDK I should say, simply because that was 11 years ago, and consoles at that time only had about 512 meg of memory, like the Xbox 360 or the PS3, whereas nowadays they've got 8 gigabytes of memory. I'm just going to pull it down a little bit in spots here and there, make it look a bit more worn. Alright, now I'm not going to do the inside edge here because again that's on the inside of the ceiling where people will be never standing or kicking, so let's add a generator. So I'm going to go back up to my top layer and add a generator again. Again we're going to use that dirt generator. Let's play with our values a little bit.
I don't care what they think about me, yeah. I don't care what they say. I don't care what they think if you're leaving. I'm gonna beg you to stay. I don't care if they start to avoid me. I don't care what they do. I don't care about anything else but being with you, being with you.
Going back to our darken mix, and pull back a little bit on my opacity. And again, that's just giving us this overall dirt look or breakup of the texture on top. Just adds a bit more interest to the texture itself. Let's pull back out. And jump back into my cherry wood texture. And look at my luminosity. Just pulling up on my contrast a little bit to bring in a bit more of the red. May just bring in a bit more red here as well. Good. That also helps to show up that that grunge we've got going on. Okay, let's save our project here. calling this one square banister bottom. Bottom. Let's export our textures. To make sure we're in the right folder, because Substance has a tendency to jump back into its default folder here. It doesn't remember. Every other 3D program you can use your little drop down to remember the last folder you used, but not Substance. Okay, let's just go back into our folders here. Export square banister, and that's the folder we want. Export our textures. Okay. Again, we're just going to make sure we save our file so it remembers that folder location. Jump back into Max. Let's open up our material editor and create another standard material. Load up the bitmap we just exported from Substance, which is this one here. Pipe it into our diffuse and make sure we turn on show shaded to show hidden. And assign the material. You'll notice that they'll show up a little darker in Max because Max's gamma is set to 2.2. So it has its gamma corrected in Max. Whereas in Substance Painter it can look a little lighter. It'll probably change slightly again when we take it into Unreal. Going to jump back into Substance quickly and load up the top one that we were working on. The banister top, that is. I want to have a look at my UVing here. What I've done here is I've rotated the UV texture 90 degrees. The actual wood grain should follow the banister railing as opposed to running across it like it was. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's re-export the texture again. It's remembered our path, which is good. Just save our file, jump back into Max, and that's a better look for our banister tops, having the UVs rotated 90 degrees. Well, the texture itself, the procedural texture is rotated 90 degrees. So we still see our edge wearing happening here on both the top and the bottom. Okay, let's look at, let's just make sure we'll save our Max file here because you never know when Max will crash and when it won't. Should only take it a minute or so to save out. Okay. Let's have a look at these brown pieces now that are the wrong color. So again, I'm going to select my original mesh and go into sub-object mode and select these pieces of geometry. So I won't select that one at this stage, we'll just do the top and the bottom.